Hi there, fourth graders. This is our Read Aloud, Chapter 9 of fourth grade Rats, and our learning goal today is I can ask myself questions along the way as I am reading to be sure I understand what I have read. Okay, so it's the same reading goal as we did yesterday. Here is our anchor chart that we used to help us monitor or check what it was that we're reading. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ask some of these questions to you as I read this story aloud. And what you're going to do is the same thing as yesterday. Keep up with the questions, and we'll have our ticket out with some of these questions just to check to see if you were checking and asking yourself if you understood what was going on. Okay, if you don't, then I would advise you to rewind the story a bit so you can catch the words again, and hopefully you're able to understand better what's going on in the story. Okay, so as we read this story, I might ask you to stop and jot a question down or do some sort of activity or a short response. So make sure you have your journals with you as we are doing this. Chapter 9, You Want a Rat? It was lunchtime. I took my tray through the food line. As usual, I waited for Joey. As I was waiting, I saw a sight that made my eyes pop. Judy Billings was sitting a couple tables away by herself. Usually, she was surrounded by girlfriends. Judy Billings, alone? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't pass up the chance. Okay, so stop and reflect and think. What are we in the story? What's the setting? That's one of the questions that's on our anchor chart. So, what's happening in the story right now? Okay, so what is the character about to do? Or what's happening with the character? Let's read the next page to find out. Walking over to her table was as scary as walking on the roof. But I did it. I sat down next to her. Hi, I said. Mind if I sit here? She kept looking at her grilled cheese sandwich. Yes, she said. I giggled. I grinned. I was thrilled. Yes. It was the first word she ever spoke to me. I'd remember it forever. Yes, yes, yes. I said, I mind, she said. Oh, I said. What should I do? I was in too deep to back out now. Okay, I said. I got up and sat down on the other side of her. This better? No. She kept speaking to the grilled cheese sandwich. Did she think I was the sandwich? I felt my chair move. I looked up into the face of Gerald Willis. He was pulling my chair backwards. When it was away from the table, he tipped it forward. I slid off to the floor. It was the bench at the talent show all over again, only worse. I got up. I slunk away. Kids were laughing. One of them was a third-grade angel, eating a piece of... Okay, before I continue reading the story, go ahead and take out your journals. And I want you to stop and jot what could be one good question we could ask ourselves right now. And I want you to pick that question and answer it. So I'll give you an example, but don't use my example. Okay? So for the example, I could use, let me pull a word from here. What does the word probably mean in this sentence? So I'll go back and look at the text and say, let me look for something. Okay, so what does this word mean in a paragraph? Slunk. I got up, I slunk away. Kids were laughing. One of them was a third-grade angel. So I'm guessing that the word slunk means he moved away like he was embarrassed. I think this because kids were laughing at him. So that's what I would put down as my answer. Okay, I would write this question down What does the word slunk mean? I think it means this. So, pick a question from this chart and I want you to answer it. Go ahead and pause the video so that you can do that. Now, here's this if you want to pause over on the anchor chart, and here is our story if you want to pause it on that. Okay, I'm going to keep on reading, and if you are not ready, then by all means take your time. Okay, one of them was a third grade angel eating a piece of chocolate cake. I didn't take the cake from the angel's hand. I just shoved his hand, cake and all, into his face. Then I mashed them around. The whole joint was howling. As I walked out of school that day, Judy Billings happened to be right behind me. This time, I didn't hold the door open for her. I let it shut in her face. I went straight home and up to my room. With one swipe of my hand, I sent my whole Matchbox car collection flying from the top of my bookcase. I probably would have destroyed my room right then if I hadn't headed for the bathtub. No tugboat and dinosaur this time, just me and the water. I didn't turn it off till it was up past my belly button. I sank into as deep as I could. I wanted to pull it over me like a blanket. I wanted to forget the day. I wanted to forget 4th grade. Okay, go ahead again. In your journal, pick a question, and I would like for you to answer it. Make sure you're answering it as best as possible in complete sentences. By the time I got out, I thought I was feeling better. I was wrong. As soon as I got back to my room, I punched Winky my bear. At dinner, Zippernose smirked and sneered and snickered until my mother finally said, "What is it?" "I can't tell," giggled Zippernose. "I'll get in trouble." "If you don't stop that carrying on, you'll be in trouble." "Okay, I'll tell." My mother looked at me. "I'm not sure I even want to know. I'll let Suds tell me later if he wants to." "No," screeched Zippernose. "I want to tell." And before anyone could stop her, she told about Gerald Willis and the chair, about the 3rd grader and the cake in the face, about the whole place laughing. Bubba was going into spasms over the cake scene. My parents just stared at me. My mother looked hurt. "That doesn't sound like you, Suds," she said. "They were laughing," I reminded her. "Are you going to attack everybody who laughs at you the rest of your life?" "Yeah," I said, "maybe I will." I got up from the table and stomped off. "Take a bath," my mother called. I did. "Take another." I took another. Didn't do any more good than the first. I decided to go to bed early, get myself unconscious as quick as possible. I put on my PJs, turned out the light, and got under the covers. I felt something with my foot. What could be under there? It felt like wood. It felt like... Snap! Yow! Suddenly I was on the floor and the mousetrap was on my big toe. I pried it off. I went to the door, yanked it open. I heaved the trap down the hallway. I screamed, "Okay, you want a rat? You got a rat." Okay, so for your last portion for this read aloud, I want you to ask yourself, what do you think will happen next? Last thing that Suds says, okay, you want a rat, you got a rat. What is Suds going to do? I want you to stop and jot that prediction down. And don't cheat, because I'm going to have chapter 10 up, but don't read that story. I really want you to make a prediction before you actually get to the next chapter, okay? So that is your ticket out. Okay, stop and share what you wrote down in your journal. And that is it for today's lesson. We'll see you with chapter 10 tomorrow.